We hear about groups like Taliban and Al-Qaeda and Hamas, but do we really know what they're thinking? I'll talk to someone with firsthand experience, and later, what's being done here at home to keep jihadists off our campuses. The conversation starts right now. Welcome to Conversations. I'm Nancy Brinker. My first guest has sat kneecap to kneecap with Islamic jihadists to get into their mindset. What he's learned is chilling. Former Army Captain Jesse Petrilla, who wrote the book If It Takes 1,000 Years, joins me now. Welcome. We're so happy to have you today. So, as an Army captain, you traveled the world interrogating jihadists. Let's start off by getting to the common theme you observed. Is the ultimate goal world domination, and is that view shared by Arabs in general?
Well, it's not necessarily by Arabs in general, but by the jihadists all share one common goal, and it's not ethnocentric. I mean, that's the thing. It's an ideology. It's not ethnic based, and they really in the 400 interrogations that I participated in with captured Taliban and Al-Qaeda members, and also the decade prior in researching the mindset, traveling to about a dozen countries, writing this book, I discovered two real commonalities, the common threads that it doesn't matter if it's Hamas or Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah, what have you. They all have this long-term mindset where they're focused primarily on indoctrinating the next generation. And second, they all have this goal of establishing a global Islamic caliphate under Sharia Islamic law.
So, describe a typical interrogation.
Well, it wasn't like the movies have it where you're pouring water over their head and saying, tell us what you know. It was really, you're drinking tea with them, you're their friend. And I spent about 6 months with them, and it was just so eye-opening. And what was scary is just how friendly they seemed. They feigned this fake niceness that if I didn't know better, I would really let my guard down. But it was really, what was the scariest is just realizing this long-term mindset. There was, in fact, the title of my book, If It Takes 1,000 Years, comes from one of the conversations I had with a Taliban commander where I told him, hey, we've got you caught. Why are you still fighting? And he said, my children will fight you, and their children. If it takes 1,000 years, we will win. And it's just chilling when I heard that. There was another one that I interrogated, and I remember the translator translating to me what he said. He said, you have the watches, but we have the time. Oh. And it was in that instant, it was so creepy to have a guy that we've captured, an enemy that is there in a cell with you, and realizing that he has the upper hand. I knew that my tour would be done and eventually America would leave there, and they would just outweight us. And that's the way that they operate.
Wow. What did you learn about the mindset of various kinds of Islamic militants you met?
Well, I mean, out of the 400 interrogations that I participated in, I don't recall a single one that didn't go through an Islamic school known as a madrasa. And that's really where it starts. They are very focused on indoctrinating the next generation. And in fact, Taliban is the Pashto language word for students. Talib, singular, is student. Taliban, students. So these are the students of those Islamic schools. And unfortunately, they have our kids in their sights as well. Iran in particular has gotten very good at sending activists to American college campuses and trying to get to our kids. Let's face it, I mean, kids' minds are mush until they're age 25, so they're very easily impressionable. And when you have an activist run through the campus with a bullhorn saying, free, free Palestine, you have 100 useful idiots following him, and they're kids looking for purpose. They're very naive in who they're backing. They just don't know.
Can you share a particular anecdote or exchange you had, though, that you really found chilling?
I would say the most chilling, and this just goes into how different of a mindset this is, and who these kids are backing. One of the Taliban commanders in the interview, as we would call these in a politically correct term, he told me about his family, where that's a typical thing that you do in one of these things. You ask, hey, tell me about your family. You get to know them. And he said very casually, very nonchalantly, I have 9 kids. I had 10, but my daughter dishonored the family, so I killed her.
Oh.
Just matter of fact. And it was unfortunate that that wasn't the last time I would hear something similar. And what's really ridiculous that we see, it goes beyond just the jihadist movement. I mean, this is a cultural ideology. If he hadn't killed his daughter, his friends, his family, his neighbors would say, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you kill your daughter? She dishonored the family." And we see it exported into America. We saw the tragic case of Sarah and Amina Syed, if you recall, a few years ago. Yasser Syed was the taxi driver from Egypt in Texas, where he murdered his 2 beautiful daughters. And what was worse, this guy made it to America's Most Wanted. He was on the FBI's top 10 for over a decade. What made it worse is that when they went to capture him, when they finally did capture him, I should say, that they found out that many members of the community had helped him along the way, that they arrested and convicted his son, his brother, and that just goes to show that they thought that he did the right thing. Wow.
Well, we know how they view Jews, but how do they really view Christians?
Well, they divide the world only into two parts. They have Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam. So Dar al-Harb is the land of war, the perpetual war. Dar al-Islam is under Islamic Sharia law. So it's one or the other. They want everybody, Jews, Christians, everybody who's not Muslim, to submit or die. And so the jihadists really have this long-term vision for our way of life. And the reality is that with that long-term vision, we think very short-term in the West. Typically, Americans think maybe 2 or 4 years at a time, which is our re-election cycle. So the politicians are just looking at the next election and how much they can get done in that time, and whereas these guys are thinking 1,000 years. So if it's all right, I'd like to do a little exercise with the listeners, or the viewers rather. I want you all to picture your hometown right now in 2025, how it looks, and then now think about how is it going to look in 3025. Have you ever done that? No, nobody does. But our enemies are thinking that. They have a vision for our hometowns. It's a very dark vision under Islamic Sharia law, where women are stoned to death, where women are forced to wear burqas, where you have beheadings in the public square. And so it's really frightening. I mean, this is an ideological war that we're fighting, and they're chipping away incrementally, generation by generation. I mean, 1,000 years is roughly 40 generations. So they're looking at that. How can we get to the next 2 or 3 generations? And each one doesn't think about their own well-being. They're really thinking about what they can do to get to the kids and the next one. They're looking at that 1,000-year vision. And so I mean, there was a survey that was done that just shows how much we're failing the next generation. It was of American college students, reported by one of the other major networks, by a group called Generation Lab. It showed 1 out of 8 college students on American college campuses outright supported the Hamas October 7th attack. And so that just goes to show that we are doing a real poor job at teaching the next generation about who our enemies are.
Well, tell me how they indoctrinate their kids. And do these children get any broader education like world history?
They really don't. I mean, there was one kid that I got to know. He was about 15 years old, and he survived a drone strike that killed everybody that was with him. And I got to know him pretty well over the time that I was there. And he really opened up to me. He told me how it worked. He said that the Taliban would scour this. This is just the Taliban, but a lot of jihadists operate this way too. They would scour the countryside, and they would find some poor villager that would have a number of kids. They'd knock on the door and say, "Hey, we're going to give your kids an opportunity for an education." And these people would think, I mean, they're simple farmers, and they would say, hey, what other opportunity would my kid have to have an education? So they would give their kids to the Taliban. and they would go and take them to these Islamic schools that really that most of them were just over the border in Pakistan, and they would he told me that there was no art. Art is haram under their ideology. It's forbidden. There's no music. There's nothing, no literature other than Islamic teachings. So it's just fundamentalist Islamic indoctrination for 6 or 7 years. And then when they're 14, 15, they're graduating from these schools. The Taliban actually run the schools, they own the buildings, and they're funded largely from regular sources. These are what they do is they set up bogus charities, mostly in the peninsula. And Islam, just like Christianity, has charity as part of their tenets. And so they pitch to regular Muslims, say, hey, give us your charity, they call it zakat, give it to us, and it will go toward Islamic causes. It'll go toward Islamic education. So it's not a lie. That's really what they're doing, and they fund these schools all over the world. And really, it was so prominent in Pakistan, and we did nothing to stop it. And that's why when you saw the newsreels in 2021 of the Taliban marauding through Kabul, and you see them hanging off the back of American Humvees, and they were all young kids for the most part. Most of those Taliban fighters were not even born or were toddlers when 9/11 happened. So that's the way they grow their cause. They aren't recruiting adults very easily. The prisons were really the only place that I saw them getting jihadists get any real success.
Jesse Petrilla, thanks for joining me. And again, the book is called If It Takes 1,000 Years.